right, that is a bit of Barry Manilow. And, of course, Barry Manilow was on high rotate at Parliament during the parliamentary protest, thanks to Speaker Trevor Mallard, who appeared before a select committee yesterday to answer questions about his unusual tactics in handling that particular protest. There were some questions he wouldn't answer, and lo and behold, the press gallery actually got off its chuff and asked him some questions as he walked down the corridor, and Trevor, with his normal charm, didn't answer those questions and kind of stormed through it. But one MP who doesn't think that Mr Mallard has been upfront enough is Simon Court from the ACT Party, and he joins me in the studio now. Simon, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, Sean. Good morning.
All right, were you in the Select Committee yesterday?
Yes, I was.
Okay, what did he answer? What was Trevor Mallard prepared to say?
Trevor was prepared to talk at length about the wonderful overseas trip that he had led to Europe with MPs, backbenchers from Labour and National, and all the wonderful things he had done to, as he claimed, bring a free trade deal closer. Although, when pressed, he couldn't actually give an example about how it was going to be closer.
Who else went on that trip? Who were the other gravy trainers?
I understand there were some Labour backbench MPs like Helen White and former National leader Judith Collins.
Yes, I see. I've been seeing Judith's posts from Geneva and Italy and other parts aboard. Was Nikki Kay a former National MP on part of that? Because she was over in Europe as well.
I'm not sure, Sean. The ACT Party refused to go on that trip.
Good on you.
We couldn't see any public policy purpose to go. We couldn't see any benefit to the taxpayer. So we said, in the absence of any clear benefit, we're not going.
Okay, so Trevor goes to the Select Committee and you get the equivalent of the holiday slideshow from the gravy train trip to Europe. Did he talk about anything else? And what else did you want to know from him?
Well, what I wanted to know was, given that he had trespassed a number of former MPs and many other people and then withdrawn the trespass notice, did he have legal costs that were still to come associated with that? And at that point, he said, nothing to see here, I'm not talking about that, and refused to answer.
Can he refuse to answer? You're a parliamentary committee.
Well, he can refuse to answer, but then in the court of public opinion, we get to see his true character, which is actually he doesn't want to take ownership for the decisions that he made. He doesn't want to front up and explain whether he got things right or wrong. And so it's very hard to have confidence in him as a speaker. But again, the Prime Minister has confidence in him. So it actually reflects badly on her as well.
Did you ask him at all about the way he dealt with the protest?
Did ask about whether he had actually paid royalties for the use of Baby Shark and Barry Manilow. He refused to answer that as well.
No, he might be in trouble. He might be in trouble with the Recorded Music Association or whatever they're called. So, in short, he was not at all helpful to you on matters that were important. No,
he wasn't. And look, the reason he was appearing before the committee was to answer questions about the budget that he's responsible for as Speaker.
Right.
So he's responsible for parliamentary services and the Clerk of the House. Parliamentary services is the grounds, the building, the security and so on, and all of the people who work in Parliament who help MPs do their job. And so, on behalf of taxpayers, and as an ACT MP, I was asking questions about, are we getting value for money? Are you spending your budget wisely? And when it came to matters around the protest, he just refused to answer.
Wow. And then actually, as I said, quite surprisingly, the press gallery actually asked him a question and looked like they were close to doing their job. And he said, no, I'm not answering questions about the trespass notices because that's before the courts. Well, clearly the things involving Winston Peters aren't before the courts. So that's kind of a lie. Surely those who are being trespassed are before the courts, but the issues involving Mr Peters and Mr Hyde and others, those clearly aren't before the courts because the trespass notices have been withdrawn. So he's kind of lying to the people in New Zealand, isn't he?
Yeah, well, his style is to obfuscate and dodge. He won't take ownership of the things that he should actually stand up and say, look, I got it wrong. I shouldn't have trespassed people who are...
Do you think he's a liar?
I wouldn't say he's a liar, but he certainly doesn't want to answer basic questions.
Why wouldn't you say he's a liar, Simon Court?
Well, because I haven't caught him out in any lies.
Well,
Sean.
I just told you one. He says, I can't talk about Winston Peters, he tells the media, because that matters before the courts. Well, the matters involving Winston Peters are before the courts.
Well, I think under pressure he'll say pretty much whatever he thinks he needs to get out of the situation and avoid taking responsibility.
And the cold hard fact is the government's got an absolute majority. They're not going to get rid of him. I mean, all we can hope, I guess, is this appointment to Ireland. Is it the High Commissioner to Ireland he's got, or Ambassador to Ireland is what he's picked for? That gets moved forward.
Well, I can't see how we could possibly justify as a parliament or as a country sending somebody with the character that Trevor Mallard has displayed to an important role, a diplomatic post in Europe. That's completely unacceptable.
Wow. So would you move to block that? Or if the government were to change, would you recall Trevor Mallard from that position?
Well, look, I'm not the Foreign Affairs spokesperson, but what we've said in the ACT Party is he's failed the good character test as a speaker. So drawing from that, he can't possibly pass the character test to represent New Zealand on the international stage. So if he was appointed, if he's sitting there in Dublin, right, on the government dime, and ACT and National get into office, would you say, and let's say that you do a coalition deal or support deal with National, would a condition of that be the withdrawal of Trevor Mallard from any diplomatic post he might occupy? Well, look, I'm not sitting around the coalition table negotiating.
No, you're not, but it's a pretty
Sean.
simple question. You're talking big on this, and I'm asking you to put your money where your mouth is ahead of election day.
Well, look, I'm not in charge of coalition negotiations, Sean, but what we are doing...
Okay, well, you are in charge of what contribution you can make to coalition negotiations as part of, presumably, you get back in and you're high enough off the list and ACT doesn't get wiped out. Would you raise that as a member of a potential future ACT caucus in coalition negotiations? Would you raise that with your negotiating team and say we should put Mallard getting withdrawn from being a diplomat on the table?
Well, look, that's important, but I tell you what's really important to New Zealanders is actually the cost of living crisis how we can actually reduce their energy costs.
You're just back to the talking points now, Simon. Okay.
Well, I'm the energy spokesman, Sean, and transport, and actually we're hearing a lot about the price of fuel and what's really hurting Kiwis. Trevor Mallard is a sideshow, but he's a sideshow that actually is an embarrassment to New Zealand.
Yeah, I would agree.
And he should go as Speaker of the House. That's what ACT has said.
Yeah, but you're not going to get rid of him, eh?
Well, I think if the Prime Minister sees the polls and if she's reading the room, what New Zealanders are really concerned about, then she'll start listening. But again, you're right, they do have a supermajority. They've got 65 seats in the House. They can do whatever they want. But we're on a countdown now to the next election. And what the polls and what people are telling us actually is that they would prefer a centre-right government with a large number of ACT MPs so that we can deliver for them.
All right. And I guess we just keep throwing shots at Trevor because he's such a big, slow-moving target, isn't he?
Yeah, look, I guess we saw the difference between Trevor's performance and the performance of another speaker last week. When Trevor was away in Europe, the Deputy Speaker, Adrian Ruafray, did a fantastic job of maintaining order in the House. And we would say, look, there are many other opportunities for speakers to step up, and we don't need Trevor Mallard.
Yeah. I would say, for the common citizen right now, how might they, and obviously voting next election and everything, how might, have you guys considered perhaps a public petition to remove the Speaker? That would seem to me to be a very powerful way right now to send a message.
Well, in fact, we have other options available. Our leader wrote to Parliament and asked for a special debate on the performance of the Speaker in his duty as head of the parliamentary service. And it was declined, actually, by the Deputy Speaker. So we have other avenues available to debate his performance.
But I'm talking about people in the street who might be peeved. I mean, someone needs to start a petition. That would be a powerful message right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, that's not a bad idea, Sean, and we'd welcome it. And in fact, if somebody bought
No charge, you can have it. You can have the idea.
Right. And look, my undertaking is if somebody was to bring that petition to Parliament, then I'd be happy to accept that on the steps of Parliament.
All right. So you say he's just shut out, and you say he's not an appropriate person to be a diplomat for New Zealand.
Absolutely not.
All right. And certainly there are high risks in Ireland with all the Guinness, aren't there?
No doubt.
All right, Simon, thank you very much indeed. Simon Court, ACT MP, won't call Trevor a liar. I guess they've got rules they've got to follow, haven't they?